Have you ever wondered how a simple notebook ends up on your desk? You probably never think about it, but it all starts with a tree. Yes, that's right. The paper inside your notebook comes from trees, and it takes a whole process to turn that tree into the pages you use every day. Let's break it down and show you just how it's done. It all begins in managed forests. These aren't just random forests. They're planted and maintained for the specific purpose of providing materials for paper production. The trees selected are usually soft woods like pine or eucalyptus, grown to a specific height and age. Once the trees are ready, they're carefully harvested using large machines or chainsaws. After felling, the trees are transported to a factory where the next stages begin. At the factory, the first thing they do is strip off the bark. This is done because the bark is not needed for paper, and it's also removed to prevent contamination of the pulp later on. Once the bark is gone, the logs are chopped into small uniform chips. These chips will be the starting point of turning that tree into paper. Now that we have wood chips, the next step is to turn them into pulp. Pulp is the raw material used to make paper. There are two main ways to turn wood chips into pulp: mechanical pulping and chemical pulping. Let's focus on chemical pulping, which is the most common method used for making the kind of paper we write on. In chemical pulping, the wood chips are cooked in a special chemical solution that breaks down the bonds in the wood, separating the fibers from the lignin. Lignin is what holds the wood together, and it also makes paper turn yellow over time, so removing it helps the paper last longer. This process results in a soft, mushy substance called pulp, which is ready for the next step. After the pulp is made, it's washed thoroughly to remove any leftover chemicals and impurities. The pulp is then bleached, which makes it bright white and smooth. Bleaching is done using chemicals like chlorine dioxide or hydrogen peroxide, and this step ensures the paper will look clean and crisp once it's finished. Once the pulp is ready, it's mixed with a lot of water. In fact, at this stage, the pulp is made up of about 99% water. This watery mixture is then poured onto a moving screen or mesh. The water drains away, and the pulp starts to bond together, forming a thin sheet of paper. This paper still contains a lot of moisture, so it's pressed between large rollers to squeeze out even more water. After pressing, the paper is then dried. It passes through heated rollers that evaporate the remaining moisture, leaving behind a sheet of paper that's completely dry. At this point, the paper is still in large rolls, but it's ready for the next stage. Now that the paper is dry, it needs to be smoothed and polished. This is done by running it through a series of smooth rollers in a process called calendering. These rollers flatten the paper and give it a smooth, consistent texture. This is also the stage where the paper gets its final thickness and smoothness. At this point, the large rolls of paper are cut down to size, depending on what kind of paper is being made. For notebooks, the paper is cut into the right dimensions for the pages. If the paper is going to be lined or patterned, this is also the stage where those details are printed onto the pages. Some companies add designs or special treatments to the paper to make it more durable or visually appealing. Once the paper sheets are ready, the notebook assembly process begins. The paper is first folded into signatures, which are groups of pages that are stacked together. These folded stacks are then stitched or glued together to form the core of the notebook. This binding process is what gives the notebook its shape and structure. The binding can be done in several ways. Sometimes it's stapled, other times glued, or sometimes the pages are bound using spiral wire for notebooks with coils. The cover is the next step. The cover is typically made from a thicker material like cardboard, sometimes laminated for extra protection. The cover is then attached to the pages, either by gluing or binding, depending on the notebook style. Some notebooks even have special features, like a soft touch finish or a shiny design, which are added at this stage. Finally, the notebooks are inspected for quality. Any flaws or defects are removed, and the notebooks are packed in bulk or individually, ready to be shipped. They make their way to stores, schools, and offices, or even straight to your home if you order them online. And that's how a tree turns into the notebook you use every day. From careful tree harvesting to turning wood into pulp, and then crafting each page until it becomes the notebook you're holding, there's a whole process behind it that most people never see. Next time you grab a notebook, just remember, it started with a tree and went through a lot of steps to get to you. So the next time you write down an idea or jot down some notes, you'll know exactly how that notebook came to life. If you found this interesting, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more videos about everyday things and how they're made.